Welcome to It's Not Me, It's You, our second GOVTalks on usability. To just kind of introduce the concept of usability, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows what it is, but sharing a story about when was the first time I was exposed to the idea of usability was through one of the Aesop Fables, like when literally I was a kid, and I did not take away the usability message until a lot later. This was the fable about the fox who was cooking dinner, a soup for his friend, and he served the soup in a bowl, but the friend was a stork who was not able to eat the soup because of his limitations. But the fable goes that it was planned. He was playing a trick on the stork. So years later, the message I took away was, well, it was a design decision. It was something the fox decided that I'm going to do this such a way that my user just will not be able to use it. So obviously, dinner time, one person went home hungry. A lot of times we find ourselves in situations where we make such decisions, probably not, to play tricks or maliciously, but we end up isolating the user. So usability truly is all about that reality check. How usable is the product, is your interface, is your website, your software? It doesn't matter. As long as something that you design, something that you have a decision power, that someone's going to be interacting with that, there is a certain level of usability that the product needs to have. A lot of times, we see products that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, and it takes a while for us to learn how to use them, but once we learn, it's fine. We get used to them. But there are a few products that we don't have to use on a daily basis. So those products, if they're not intuitive, if they're not really user-friendly, it always, is a challenge for the user in, a situation like, something where the designer takes a little bit of artistic liberty to design something. It might look really great. It might look very interesting, but is it really user-friendly? Is it truly serving its purpose? And that's truly where the concept of usability is based on, and it goes back to its roots of human factors. Human factors, although it gained a lot of popularity in the 80s and the 90s, actually has its roots back to World War I. World War I essentially was, where they were using all kinds of planes and gadgets, and they were training people to use them, right? So the focus was on the pilots. The focus was on the aviators to be able to use these planes. But one thing that they observed, was even a fully equipped plane, when flown by a very well-trained pilot, still crashed. And that drove them to kind of do some studies and figure what's going wrong, and then they named this term as the pilot error. Well, there's something wrong, obviously, that the pilot's not doing right. It was not until World War II that one US Army lieutenant actually proved them wrong by making some changes to the actual cockpit, where some of the controls were confusing. By just making those changes, he brought the pilot error rate significantly down, hence changing the name to cockpit error. So now the focus was completely shifted from just training the pilot or the user to now making sure that the interface, the machinery, the gadgets that the pilot's interacting with is designed for the pilot, is designed for the way users think. So going forward, obviously things are always going to get complicated. And unless we make sure that we strike a balance between what the users understand of a certain design and how the design is designed in the first place, there really is no way we can strike that sweet balance of usability. So usability truly is not just an exercise. It's a measure. It's a measure. It's essentially something that we measure to find the ease of use of any product. And in this case, today we want to talk about websites, right? So how usable are websites? There are ways to find that out. Now, even though usability is not something that you just kind of associated with a certain measure, like, just like a unit. No, it's not calculated in liters or milliliters or ounces. It's a combination. So there are two ways you can actually test how usable your website is or how usable a certain product is. The first one is what we call as the heuristic evaluation. And the second one is user testing. Now, these two approaches are not if and or. They can both be implemented, but they both are very different approaches towards finding out what the usability levels of a certain product are. They are used to actually calculate the credibility of your website. They're used to calculate, what the competency is, what the reliability is, what the user error rates are. So there are very different multiple parameters that are in account to make sure that a certain website, a certain product is usable. User testing is essentially just, going to the source, get some users, have them use your product in front of you, and observe. I mean, I've been a designer for many, many years, and it's such an eye-opening experience when you see someone interacting with your design. Because when you design, essentially when I'm making those design decisions, I'm a designer, I'm not the user. But I assume I'm the user, but I'm still not. And when you see a real user interacting with it, I'm like, you're not supposed to say anything when you're observing. So I'm like, click there, it's right in front of you. But they don't see it. And it's not their fault. I probably just put something around it that they're missing it. So we go back and we fix it until they see the button and they click it. So let's talk about heuristics. Heuristics is really kind of like a big academic word. It's essentially something that we can't quantify, but would still like to measure. So heuristics as a word was coined by Jacob Nielsen. This is this huge usability guru. And it's essentially kind of like, if you want to see if your website or your interface A is better than interface B, and which interface do users gravitate towards, you have to test both of them. And heuristics actually defines some of those parameters. But there are many of them. It's not kind of like a 100-meter sprint where, the first thing that comes in, hey, that wins. No, there are multiple ways in heuristics that you have to judge, and you have to analyze what your design is, essentially just creating a methodology. It's more like ice dancing, ice skating. There are many things in there. Like the technical issues come in, artistic criteria kick in, and then the judges are able to kind of proclaim who the winner is based on the scores. Back in the early 90s, this book changed how designers thought, and also brought a huge revolution, in the industry. If you haven't read this, I strongly recommend. I mean, I don't even know. I've stopped keeping up with how many editions this has been reprinted and printed. This is by Don Norman. Back when he used to work for Apple in the 90s, he wrote this book, The Design for Everyday Things, where he pretty much, repeated what they had found in World War II, where the focus was not on the user, it was on the design. He said that, we see this door handle almost every other day, but it's human tendency to interact with something based on what we know. That's referred to as a mental model, right? So when we see something like this, we automatically go and pull it because that's what the handle tells us to do. But there is push written on the handle, right? So clearly someone else is trying to tell us what to do, but the design doesn't agree with that. If the design intuitively asks us to pull it, then that's what the handle is supposed to do. If you require the user to push that door, change the handle. This is not a user error. This is something they need to change in design, right? Because we are used to our habits. In this building, on the back side, if you take the elevator, all the doors for the first 5 floors, you have to push them. Just the 6th floor door, you have to pull it. And I used to work right by the 6th floor door. That's where I used to sit. And it took me a month to remember, oh yeah, I need to reset my expectations for this door because somebody just, put it the other way around. So the fault is not on the user. It also could be something that the designer probably needs to just go back and fix it. But notice how the stress is now given on the user. And this is something that we do when we start with any website, is first we identify who our user is. And it's not just enough to just, kind of say, well, every Georgian is our user. Well, it's true, they are, but still, right? I mean, you have a prime set of your users, but you also have like a secondary set of your users. Who are the users who come to your website almost every day? Who are the users who come to your website every other week or every other month? What are they looking for? So we build this, what we call as the user persona, where we come up with fictitious users. We give them names. We define what their social life might be. We define what their work life might be. We define what their computer experience is, what their interaction might be. And based on that, we build them in our heads. So going forward, when we make those design decisions, we can quickly do a reality check. Will Alexander or will Donald be able to do this? If we see some really cool fancy gadget, some technology that's just awesome, but if Donald doesn't have an awesome computer, and if he's not able to use it, what's the point, right? So personas really kind of give you a very good reality check, and that is the core of where your design should start from. Because also, once your design's done and once you're doing your usability testing, there are ways to validate. Now there are some sophisticated tool sets that you can test your design. And Peter's talk right after this is going to go into a little deeper tool sets where you can actually see how users are using your site. There are these activities like user testing where you can get to observe, or you can do it using tools. That glass down there, by the way, is not something a competitor of Google Glass. It's actually a user testing eye tracking device that users wear, so that actually translates to where they are looking on the screen. So you have all that data now. Where are they looking? So if you have, for example, an application where you require the users to go through X, Y, and Z steps, but you see that at step Y, they're just dropping off. They're not going to step Z. You can tell why, because maybe they're not looking. They're probably not clicking on the right thing because they're maybe distracted, or they're just assuming that's something else. So these are some ways that we can actually find out, what's going on with our website. But here are some core elements of user experience, and these are covered in heuristics and also in user testing. And as long as we are conscious about these elements, that we make sure we have covered them, there's a good chance your site is going to be very usable and at a certain baseline. The first one is your site useful? Site or your content, all right? A lot of times what happens is we are asked to put some content, or we have some content sitting up there that's probably old, deprecated, no one's using them, but it's still out there. So we want to make sure we always go through a reality check of, is our site and is our content useful? Is our site usable? Whatever we have up there, can the users actually perform tasks with it? Is our content desirable? Whatever you have put up there, does the user feel like they need to read it? Does the user feel like they should click it and move forward with it? Also, is your content findable, right? I mean, big sites with a lot of content, users get maybe to your site using a search engine or maybe through a home page, but they probably don't see what they're looking for on the home page, but then how do they find it? They could either use a navigation that you have, or they could just use the search. How easy is the content to find? Let's see. Is your site credible? And especially it holds true with government websites, right? Because we are giving out some really important information that affects people's lives. And if people, when they look at our websites, one way to easily, figure that it's a government website is probably if they have a .gov domain. But there are so many sites out there with a .org domain or a .net domain. In that case, the user will like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, anyone can register that. Is someone pretending to be the government, or is it truly the government? But you can also have it by the rest of the elements that you have on your site, where you kind of build that trust with the users. And the last is your site accessible, right? There's so many different types of users using different types of devices to use your site. The users who might have some disabilities, for them, is your site going to be performing the same as someone who has all the benefits of the most equipped computer and all the senses? So going back to the usability aspect of it, back in 2011, the federal government had issued this executive order where they stopped issuing all .gov second-level domains because they saw that out of like 1,759 executive branch agencies, between all of them, they had some 24,000 websites. That's a lot. So they were like, well, where can we start? Well, at least like put a stop on no new domain registrations. And then they wanted to crank down on the whole effort of improving customer service. So this was a good start, right? I mean, they first started out with, do we really need a website for something like this? Are these websites even used? If not, let's turn them off, take them down. Also, how useful are some? So granted, sometimes we all need websites, but how useful are our elements that we have on the website? That brings me to kind of this classic, the xkcd.com caricature. I don't know if you all have seen this. This is a perfect case. This is a comparison of what a typical university website has, what they think the users need versus what the users are actually looking for. And you can translate this to any sector, the government or any sector, right? A lot of the university websites have the letter from the president and the school's philosophy and press releases and the alums and beautiful pictures of the campus. Well, people are looking for an academic calendar. They want to know when spring starts. Or, where do I park? But this is a mismatch, and truly what is common between what they want to project and what the users are looking for is just the name of the school. This is a problem because they either don't know the users or they don't know what the users are looking for, and there's a good chance they don't know both of it. They don't know, what the possible constituencies are for their website. Are most of the users alums? Or most of the users just generic people looking for information? Or the students or the faculty, right? Is it helpful? Maybe not. So truly it is up to us to ask this question over and over again. Is what I have out there, is it useful? And there are ways, and that's why we do constant user testing. User testing or heuristics is not something we always do just before launching the product. We need to do it at a regular basis. It's almost kind of like our annual physical. It's a check. It's a reality check of what we have out there on the website and what the users are needing and what they are using out there. Second one is the usable factor of our website. Like, form follows function. So how usable is your website? Granted, now you have everything out there that is absolutely useful. But then once you put out there, is it still doing its work? How do you have placed it up there? This is where the usability aspect of a website comes in. And again, another book, if you haven't read it, highly recommend it. Steve Krug, Don't Make Me Think. And the book is all about exactly what the title says. Don't make the user think. Make it so simple that they go there, they see it, they click on it, and they're done. All right, they're not there to appreciate your website. They're there for their reason. They need something from you. This is the website for the Army Special Ops Command. And as you can see, they could do some usability tweaks. There's this huge central map image where probably only those familiar with the particular Army units can easily go and say, oh yeah, this is where I want to go. It takes a while for someone to understand what they're trying to say. In usability terms, this is called as a mystery meat navigation. With the whole concept of, the whole highly processed meat that we get nowadays, I mean, it's impossible to even tell where it came from. So similarly, they have buried these links with these images where we don't know where they're taking us, right? So unless we click on them, we go and, this is not where I wanted to go back. So the user now is thinking a lot. So this is where, the focus should be. The user should just be able to get it in the first 5 seconds. That's it. That's pretty much the tolerance level of the users now is 5 seconds. This is the site for Big Lots. A decent site, I would say. Surely they have everything out there, but their problem is, like many other websites, is they have a lot to offer, and they have this navigation on the left-hand side where I think someone was like, we just need to show everything that we have. Sure, but the screen ends after a certain point, right? Before you have to start scrolling. So if I read shop departments up there, the only true department I can see is electronics, right? So for the rest of all the departments, I have to start scrolling. Now, I am involved in an activity. Even though it's simple, but still I am scrolling. So now I'm not completely focused on their website. So fine, I start scrolling and it scrolls. I see more departments. I also see some, very well placed icons. It just keeps going and going and going, right? So it's nice to have everything on the front page, but at some point the user just starts looking at it like, it's all grave to them. Oh, and it goes again, yeah, until we get to the footer. But this is Target. It looks very similar to Big Lots because both of them have done a good job of translating that coupon book look to their website, right? No one comes here to read about how Target was formed and blah, blah, blah. No, they just want to see what's on sale, what's on clearance. It's out there. But if you noticed, they have all their navigation collapsed in a horizontal form. So without having to scroll, I can see everything up there. And then based on what I'm looking for, I can just go and hover, and it opens up the second level navigation. It's a lot more user-friendly. It doesn't require me to keep scrolling until I find, and then I stop, and then I go and hover, and it's just a lot more load on the user. So think about it where, wherever we can, just reduce the load on the user, don't make them think. How desirable is your website? And your website truly needs to have a very strong image, the brand presence, design elements that should be desirable for the users to go and use it. This is Yale University's homepage. It's pretty decent. You see everything that they have to offer. this is their landing page, right? So this would be the equivalent of our Georgia Gov. And then users can choose to go to a certain department within the university. So I did, and landed here. Okay, I want y'all to take a guess what department this is. Sports, recreation sports, yeah, because nothing, conveys an art department as a background image of Michael Jordan's final shot, right? And I'm like, you guys are Yale. How come no one looked at this? And this is not the bad part. The background image is actually an animated GIF. I just took a screenshot to kind of save you from this hazard. You're welcome. But they have this on every page. Not this image, some pages have this. I'm guessing they had a camera on when someone was using their website. I was playing the devil's advocate. I'm like, oh, this is the art department. Maybe they're taking some liberties. But this is not art. This is design. When you're expecting someone to interact with your website, you have to make sure that you give them a certain experience. This is not a painting, right? They have their menu. Notice how many levels they have, how many first levels they have. They have some levels that I can see that are really required and people might click them, but really, do you need its own section for recent changes? And then they have the second to last, I don't know if you can see it, everything else. You know how we have everything else box in there, like in our houses? Like, I don't know where this goes, just put it in that box. I'll figure it out later. Come on, Yale. I don't know. I mean, I'm torn. I know it's the art department, but it's Yale. This is the school we look up to. All right, so we just need to be conscious about, what we should kind of stay away from, because I would love to see what the users are doing on this website. So is your content findable? Users typically act on websites the way they do on, in stores, right? You go in with a mission. You go in to find something. You either walk down the aisles and trust your instincts or trust your intelligence to kind of associate with the signs and the aisles to what the product's going to be shelved, or you just go ask someone, right? So when users get on your website, they would go start clicking on navigation items, or they can just go to the search and find it. Navigation items, the way navigation is built, and some of you who have worked with us probably know this, where we work with you all on let's figure out your navigation. Let's look at your site from a content perspective and start making chunks of your navigation that we can label later. And that becomes our first level navigation. It should be really easy. It should be intuitive. Sometimes it makes sense to arrange things based on topics, right? Like Amazon. There's no other way to arrange topics, the navigation here. Sometimes it makes sense to make the navigation based on tasks. Anyone seen this Mechanical Turk by Amazon? It's awesome if you haven't. It's really good. It's basically where you can offer your services and make some money, or you can go up there and find people who can, and these are like little odd jobs that people can do online, but it's very easy. You want to make money or you want to get results. Simple. Based on that, based on the task, you go click and move on. You could also have a navigation by demographic. Are you looking something for your home, or are you looking something for your office, for work? They also used to have small business, they used to have a government, but they even made it simpler. Or if none of this works, you can do what we did on Georgia Gov. we have a very prominent search because that's where we saw people were going to search things. And then we changed, we used to have a topical navigation before, but we changed that now and are primarily focusing on search. And then if you've used Georgia.gov, you can see like as you start typing in, we have a lot of like intelligence that we have added to our search that suggests you a few things even while you're typing, auto suggests. So the search is really intelligent to understand what the user is looking for and point them to a certain place. So make sure, however, you place your content, be it based on navigation, be it based on search, it's findable. If I'm sure all of you have analytics running on your site. If you're hosted with us, you surely have analytics running on your site. If you don't have access to it, by all means, after the talk, let me know. I will give you access so you can see what users are using on your site. What content are they clicking on the most? What content they're clicking on the least. Based on that, you can make an informed decision. What do I do with this content that just gets clicked once in 6 months? It's very important. Then there's this credibility aspect of the site. It's so important, and especially for us, like I said, it's so important. Because I was looking at some sites around, and this is the website for the Register of Deeds Association for Wisconsin. All right. I take a look at it, and I'm like, wow. This is like not even late 90s. This is like early 90s. I'm like, maybe nobody has touched it. It's just sitting there. But no, the last change was made in July 2013. So people are maintaining it. It still has a heartbeat on it. But then I started looking at it, and I mean, not to pick on other sites, but seriously, sometimes I'm like, how come no one really looks at this and says, most of the other sites on the web that now I'm seeing are a little different. Let's change something in here. But some of the other than the obvious usability issues, the navigation, probably just the half of the navigation is truly something that users probably would want to use on this website. The rest of the site is nothing but just FYI. It's not important. As you can see, the first link up here is a thank you to the Register of Deeds Association from Vital Records Division. So completely an internal conversation that they have published up on there. The second one is a holiday schedule for them because it's very important. Then, the highlighted one is their updated fee of $30. And then the lilac, the purple one, is a concern that if you have a low resolution monitor, maybe you can just click here for our sitemap. Right now, users having a low resolution monitor is the least of their concerns. But hey, they have an animated GIF of their flag. So, you know what I mean, but it doesn't end here. And then I scrolled and went down, and there's this beautiful picture of a Wisconsin sunset, which is shot by Charles Cottle. And if you click on the picture, you can actually go to Charles Cottle's personal website. So relevant to have it on this website. And this is where decisions come in. This is where someone needs to put their foot down and like, does it really matter? Is this really useful, right? Is the counter doing anything? It might do a lot for the people back office to see, yeah, we have 600,000 users up here. But as a user, I'm just like, wow, 600,332 users saw this? So this is where the credibility aspect just completely, loses. And as a user, I'm like, oh my God, I probably just need to walk in there. I don't want to put my credit card on this website. But credibility is not just associated with your website. It's an overall presence. It's an overall user experience. I bought a new car a few months ago. And it's a Nissan Leaf. And then a few months after I bought it, like literally like a couple of weeks ago, I got this email accusing me of like, hey, we missed you. By the way, it's a reminder for your maintenance. I'm like, oh, okay, I did not know. Okay, well, sure, I'll schedule something. So I started reading the email, and they said, well, never mind. I mean, we have, you covered. We also have some coupons for you that you can bring in. We'll throw in, an oil change for you for $30. Now, I bought a Nissan Leaf, which is an all-electric car. Doesn't need an oil change. But I'm new to electric cars, so I'm like, maybe it does. So I called them. After a long wait, I finally got to speak to someone, and they're like, you don't need an oil change. Like, well, you emailed me that I need one. Oh, disregard it. Like, okay, now you have wasted almost like an hour of my life because I was concerned that I missed something because that's how your email started, and now you confirm my suspicion that I don't need an oil change, but you're also telling me that you're not doing your job of making sure that I am not one of those users who should be receiving these emails, right? So that just shows that they haven't really thought about the user. So that's, again, credibility, where I'm like, well, I bought the car from you, that's about it, thank you. The last but not the least is the accessibility part of it, where, we need to make sure that regardless of what your website does, it should be accessible, because our users come in all shapes and sizes, where they could be using like a large monitor, a small mobile device. Some of them might have some disabilities, right? I mean, we could have users using browsers that read out the website for them. They might not even be reading it. They might not even see that the fee message has a bright yellow background because the browser is reading out that message to them. Some of the users might have motor skills where their hands probably shakes a lot. That's when if there are two links that are super close to each other, they might not be able to click on one of them. So these are the design decisions. These are some of the things we need to think about. Think about the colorblind people. If we have content that has a certain color that signifies this is important because it's in red, the colorblind people are just going to miss that, right? So we need to make sure when we design, when we make these conscious decisions, we account for all of these things together to make our website usable. Otherwise, it's just going to be, we'll be probably repeating the fox and the stork story. And, I can't tell you how many times unknowingly we end up being the fox. So, having said that, this is essentially what the usability aspect of websites are. Any questions? Oh, good. Looks like everyone got it. Awesome. Well, thank you. We're going to have a 10-minute break, and then we're going to move on to Peter's talk. Thank you.